5:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you would stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone who's watching from home. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee DeVore?
Present.
Trustee Gett?
Present.
Trustee Kazam?
Present.
Trustee Reichert?
Present.
Trustee Wigginton?
Present.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Present.
All right, again, welcome. We have a quorum. Next is approval of the minutes from the Board of Trustees meeting. The agenda reads September 19th, 2023, but it's actual, we're approving the minutes from October 3rd, 2023. So I'd ask for a motion to approve those minutes. Council, do we need to amend it since it's on the agenda, or are you okay with just?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of October 3rd, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes of October 3rd signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Just one announcement. Linda Miracle dropped this off and asked if we would read it tonight. It's join us in praying for our city and our community at large. It's at Peoria Heights Tower Park, called Pray and Take Action, 1222 East Kingman Avenue, Peoria Heights, October 21st, 2023, from 11 to 12. It's organized by the concerned citizens of the Peoria area. Join us for prayer to put a stop to gun violence. No more just thoughts and prayers, but resolution to unite in prayer and action. If my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and pray. So just want to make you all aware of that event coming up. Next would be comments from the audience. If anyone would like to address the board, if you would come forward to the podium, please, and give your name and address, and try and keep your remarks under 5 minutes. Public comments open. Kathy, welcome.
Kathy Stevenson, 1505 East Glen Avenue in Peoria Heights. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to all the trustees. I know you guys work hard at all the different issues that have faced you. I just want to make a couple of comments as it relates to this. I mean, you've obviously, a variation of the board, or this board even, has had to address the ambulance issue, has had to address the fire issue, the fire department issue, and while those two things are extremely important to all of us in the Heights, I think as we think about water, hopefully by the grace of God, none of us will have to use those other two services, but we need them. But water is something each and every one of us use countless times a day and probably don't even realize how often we use it. My husband and I, 13 years ago, actually had our water main break from the house, not the water main, I guess the line from the house to the street. We came home from vacation, came in, there's water in the driveway. We called the non-emergency number. The Heights was great. They came out. They told us, fill the bathtubs, fill what you need to, but you're responsible for getting that fixed. So we went 4 days without water. We filled the tubs and everything so we could flush toilets. But it's, when you lose it, it's critical. So it was about $3,500 for us to make those repairs, and that was 13 years ago. And that was the first time we really realized, because of when the Public Works guys came out and they told us, you know, the infrastructure in the Heights is deteriorating, we've got issues, we're going to see more and more of this type of thing happen. So it's obviously something that's been percolating. I'm sure at that time, 13 years ago, it wasn't the first they'd heard of it. They knew it needed to be addressed. So I guess I just say, as something that affects all of us, this probably needs really a lot of attention. I'm interested in hearing what they have to say tonight. And I would say that obviously Peoria has, you know, sold, I think Illinois American does their water, but they have something in the contract that they can actually reevaluate that every so many years. I'm not sure why they seem to reevaluate it, never make a move beyond that. But obviously, Illinois American Water is not in the business of losing money, so they obviously see a potential here. So I would just want to make sure that, you know, no stone is uncovered and we understand what the long-term ramifications are of this. Our water rates are actually very low compared to most water rates. We recently just sold our home in the Heights that we'd been in for over 30 years. And some of the people from other communities that looked at it, they wanted to know our water rates. And we were like, what? I mean, our water is nothing compared to any of the other bills that we have in the house. So that may be something that we have low water rates, and that's a potential that they see. But I just ask that we leave no stone unturned and make sure that this is something that is very critical that each and every one of us relies on every day. So thank you, and thank you for all you do, because I know no matter what you decide, everyone's not going to be happy, and that's not your job. Your job is really to look at everything, evaluate it, and make the best decision possible. So I thank you, and I hope, regardless of whatever side of the fence people are on, that they support what you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. All right, who'd like to be next? Chief Reichert, welcome.
Norm Reichert, 5016 Glen Elm Drive. I hate to be the one to bring it up all the time, but I won't be able to ask later because the comments come before. But with Peoria reevaluating their option to buy their water service, which I doubt if they will because of the price, but what would that do to the Heights if we went with Illinois American? That's my question. I know you can't answer it, but you could ask them to answer that. Hopefully it wouldn't affect us if they did, but that's my question. Thanks.
Thank you, Norm. Anyone else? Chris, do we have all the chairs out? All the chairs out?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Anyone else? Public comment? Public comment going once, twice. Public comments closed. We'll move into a presentation by Illinois American Water. Welcome, gentlemen.
Yeah. Put this down here for a minute. Okay. Hi there. Nice to see you all. Okay. My name is David Marfell. I'm the Operations Director / Superintendent for the Operations Distribution Department for Illinois American Water in Peoria. With me, I have Kyle Smith. He's the Senior Manager of the Western Division for Illinois American Water. I have Trip Barton here with me. He's the Engineering Manager for the Western Division. And we have Pam Ingersoll Godey. She's the Water Quality and Environmental Compliance Manager for the Western Division. I'm going to take a few minutes. I'm going to tell you about who we are as American Water. I'm going to tell you who we are as Illinois American Water, and I'm going to tell you who we are and how we operate as the Peoria District. Peoria Heights would lie within the Peoria District. And then I'll pass it off to Kyle, and he'll go over a few slides. And then after we're done, we'll be available to answer some questions from you all as needed. First, I want to say that we consider our relationship with the Heights very valuable and very important. We have infrastructure that run parallel in this immediate area in Peoria Heights. We are all an option for you. We will continue to attempt to be a great neighbor, and we're always here to assist you in any way that we can. So with that, I'll get into the presentation. Okay, Christopher.
There you go. You were highlighted on there.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you. Okay. Okay, who we are. American Water. We were founded in 1886. We are the country's largest publicly traded water and wastewater utility. And we produce 1 billion gallons of water that's treated and delivered every day. We employ over 6,400 employees in communities nationwide. Provide services to approximately 14 million people in 24 states. And we have locations from Hawaii to New Jersey. If you look at the map, the blue states are the regulated water and wastewater operations, and the gray, not all of them, but you can see the states, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma. Those are our military services group, and I'll get to that in a minute. We manage more than 500 water and wastewater systems across the country. We have 52,500 miles of water main, 80 surface water treatment plants. We have 480 groundwater treatment plants, 1,100 groundwater wells, and 160 wastewater treatment plants. Our military services group, we have contracts with the Department of Defense for the operation of water and wastewater systems on military bases, and we currently have 18 installations across the country for military installations. That's a little bit about American Water, a little bit about Illinois American Water. 140 years experience. We serve 148 communities in 13 operating districts, and those districts are broken up into 5 state regional divisions. We have the Northern District, which is Chicago Metro. We have the Eastern, which is Champaign and Pontiac. Central is Alton and Jerseyville. The Southern is Belleville and Granite City. And then the Western, which is where we're at, that is Peoria, Pekin, and Lincoln. We have over 360 water and wastewater customers in the state of Illinois. We have 550 employees, and more than 300 of those are represented by labor unions, and I'll get to that here shortly, talk a little bit more about that. The earliest water system was franchised in Alton back in 1875, and annually we invest $250 to $275 million across the state in capital water and wastewater improvements. A couple other things about us. We are a regulated utility, and that is done by the Illinois Commerce Commission, also known as the ICC. What does that mean when we're regulated? Any rate changes that we have to be approved by the ICC. We also have requirements as far as regulatory when it comes to hydrants and valves that they have to be exercised and maintained every year. And we also have a length of service on our water meters that have to be changed every 10 years. A little bit about the Peoria district ourselves. We have approximately 50 employees that work out of our University Street location, 8400 North University. That is our distribution department. We have approximately 20 employees that work down at the Lawrence at the edge of the river. That is our production facility. We have approximately 5 employees each in our engineering and water quality. And we have a safety specialist that's on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And what he does is he regulates and ensures our employees are safe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As I mentioned about union employees, we have 3 local work groups that are affiliated with unions. Our distribution group is Labor's 165 out of Peoria. That is the same unit that the Peoria Heights Public Works employees are affiliated with. Our production crew is the Operating Engineers Union, and our op support group is the Chicago Midwest Region number 16. We also have approximately 7 to 8 employees on call per day, per night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to address emergencies and customer concerns. We also have a customer service center that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we have a field rep communications center which communicates directly with our employees, which is also 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That is kind of how we operate, who we are as a company. I will give the mic to Kyle, and he will go over a couple other slides for you. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Dave. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see all of you. Nice to be back. It's a bit like riding a bike, I suppose. So hopefully I remember how it goes. I think Dave gave you a good overview of where we're at as far as the company is, what the local district itself looks like. I'm going to touch real briefly just on the acquisition process and what that might look like, and hopefully I can answer some questions surrounding that as well. We've intentionally kept this pretty brief this evening. Dave and I are the only ones that have actual sanctioned speaking parts here. But again, we do have Tripp and Pam with us. Dave and I are not the experts. They are the experts in their respective fields. Again, Pam is over our water quality department. Tripp is our manager of the engineering department. So if there are some questions afterwards, we would certainly encourage that. And we have them here, so we should take advantage of that. And we have as long as you need. So I'll get into it. So these are just, and again, I've intentionally kept the slides limited in number. I've only got a handful. and I'm not going to stand here and read this to you. We will supply the presentation to Mr. Chandler, so he'll have that, and it would be available to all of you afterwards. These are some common considerations when we first come into communities and when we start speaking with communities. From talks that some high-level talks that we've already had here with the Heights, and just knowing a bit of the history here in the Heights, I think one of the things that most folks are concerned with is your existing employees. My understanding is that there's still at least 6, possibly 7 folks within the Public Works Department. We, again, are required by the ICC to any employees that you would deem water employees that would essentially transition over with any sale of the water system. We are required by the ICC to take those employees on as our own and make sure that they are whole. So I know that's a big consideration here, and so we wanted to get out of the gate and touch on that a little bit. Wages and benefits, retirement, all that, again, it meets or exceeds existing benefits. Another important thing on here, I think, to point out is local control of development, annexation. Of course, you maintain the authority over all of that, and would work in conjunction with us, with a partnership, if there's an area that we need to get services extended to. So nothing changes as far as that goes, and as far as you maintaining that autonomy. From an investment standpoint, again, I think Dave touched on this a little bit in his slide. American Water as a whole, our parent company, in 2022, we invested over $2 billion of capital money within our system nationwide. And within Illinois American Water itself, within the state, that number was about $250 million. And again, with some of the emerging regulations and some new things that we're anticipating coming down the pipe, that number is going to continue to increase year over year. Rates, that's obviously a big concern, and I think the citizen that spoke before us touched upon that a little bit. Again, that's all negotiated during the actual purchase process. Existing rates are typically adopted right out of the gate. And if there is a discrepancy in rates between your existing rates and our current rates for the territory that you lie within, again, they're ramped up over time if necessary. And again, that is all negotiated on the front end of any agreement as to what that looks like and how long it takes to get to where we need to be. Dave touched on our customer service quite a bit. I won't go into that. Again, we are a publicly traded company. We've been in business for over 135 years. That Alton district that came online in 1875 just beat us out by a few years here in the Peoria district. That was in the 1880s. We've owned the Peoria district since then. Again, this slide touches on the employees a bit and just talks about where we are compelled again by the ICC as part of a purchase agreement to make any employees that would come over with the sale whole. Now that said, this is again negotiated on the front end. It's left up to the municipality. No employees would have to come over. If there's additional work that you need those folks for, they're qualified, you're looking to retain them, that's an option as well. Long-term benefits of partnerships. Again, some pretty basic stuff here, but basically, in a nutshell, if you all don't have to worry about water anymore, it frees you up to focus on different things. All things that you focus on already, but perhaps you can put more time and effort and resources into them. Your public safety, your streets, your parks, any economic development opportunities, and your other community priorities. We then focus on everything from your distribution piping, your service lines, your water plant, any new environmental regulations, any new operational efficiencies to be found, that sort of thing. Everything revolving around the water system would become our responsibility. We've touched on future regulations a bit. Again, this is always kind of a moving target as far as lead pipe replacement, copper replacement, and we've got emerging contaminants that everyone is beginning to discuss. We don't yet know what those regulations are going to look like, but it is certainly something that we are beginning to prepare for, knowing that it is coming. How do we get to price? Beyond rates, beyond employees, price is always kind of the next big topic. In this Water Systems Viability Act, this was a good thing. It allows us to offer, it allows you all as the municipality to receive fair market value for your system. This wasn't always the case. How this is structured is there's 3 different appraisers that are appointed by the ICC, and basically we're looking for the aggregate of that appraisal to work out a sale price. Selling is voluntary. There are many different off-ramps all throughout the process. So if the local situation changes, if something else changes, if there's new information, if there's another opportunity, at any point during the process, there is an exit ramp. It is voluntary. And again, I think Dave touched on this a little bit with some of our regulatory requirements that the local municipalities don't have. Again, based on the ICC, we have requirements surrounding how often we test our valves, how often we test hydrants, how often we change meters, and also, these kids out here are having a lot of fun. That's great. I may go join them after this. Also, surrounding the ICC also dictates rates. And so Illinois American Water does not have the power to choose and set rates as we wish. This is a lengthy process, this is a complex process to go out for a rate case. And again, this is all dictated by the ICC. We did have new rates go into effect earlier this year, January of this year. It basically took all of 2022 to go through that process. Prior to going for that rate case in 2022, we had not gone for a rate case for 7 years prior to that. Timeline for acquisition, what we're looking at. And again, I know this can be a big question mark here. Community engagement. Community engages. We're engaged now. That's what's happening. So really, and some of this due diligence can begin in earnest. Really the next big step, should we decide together to move forward, would be you all going out for some type of RFP, and whether you would be able to put that together in-house or whether you would choose to have a consultant help you with that. That would be your prerogative, but that would really be the next step to kick off the process. Typically that RFP issuance process is 30 to 60 days. 30 is awfully tight. It's nice to get a minimum of 45 days. 60 is better. I see council nodding his head. So that really would be the next step. You all receive offers for your request for a proposal. You have a certain amount of time that would be predetermined within the process for RFP evaluation. And then once you would have an accepted offer, that's when we get into this regulatory approval process. Again, this all needs to go through the ICC. I have seen the entire process be as quick as 9 months. That's really best case scenario. I think typically what's more realistic is 12 to 13 months is what we're looking at usually. If we would get to that next phase, that official due diligence phase, these are some of the things that we start to look for and ask questions about, frankly, so it can help us get a better understanding of the system and perhaps any challenges or opportunities that the system may present. You're really already pretty far ahead in that process. You did just recently have Woodard and Kern perform your 20-year capital plan. That was a pretty comprehensive plan, and so that does help with already starting to organize a lot of this data that we would typically be requesting. That's it for now. Again, I wanted to keep it real brief, real high level, let you know who we are. We've been a friend and neighbor for over 100 years. Give you a little bit about you and your citizenry, a little bit about what the actual acquisition process looks like. Again, we have our water quality expert here. We have our engineering person here. So at this time, I think if there would be any questions from the board, if it's appropriate at this time, we'd be open to answer them.
Sure, thank you for the presentation. Who would like to start?
I'll begin. You touched on, obviously, water quality is paramount for any community, and we get a lot of complaints here in the village for brown water. You would obviously address that. What would the time frame be, or the timeline, in order to mitigate that brown water in our community?
I'm gonna tag out here, and I'm gonna move into a supporting role for Pam and Tripp. I think Tripp has a pretty good feel as far. We are going through this transition right now with several communities that we have recently acquired.
You could speak to water quality, or I can do the
So I guess I need clarification on what you mean by ground.
Brown.
Brown, okay.
That makes more sense.
That makes a lot more sense. So as far as discolored water in general, you've got two components going on: the water treatment process, and then what has happened and the buildup in the pipes over the years due to that discoloration. So you've got something dissolved in the water and it builds up and comes out of solution, and you get kind of a solid form. It will not be a quick, it'll be more of a marathon, for good reason. We cannot and would not switch treatment or switch sources without a lot of studies. We don't want anything harmful to come to happen with our customers. Obviously, we all know, Flint, Story, University Park. Those regulations can be tedious for somebody in water quality who wants to fix it and wants to fix it fast. We just cannot do that. So it is a slower process, a lot of studies that we have to provide, a lot of data we have to give to the IEPA, who regulates us, that will say, yes, you can switch treatment, or yes, you can change your source. What Tripp will talk to is a little bit maybe what we can do on the infrastructure side first, as we in the background are doing the water quality studies to allow us to change the source. So,
Sure. Hey, good evening, everybody. There's kind of twofold. What Pam talked about was the infrastructure replacement. So I'll just tell you a similar what we do in Peoria. There's an annual replacement program. Those things are both, they're like break history that drives things. You also have areas where you have discolored water from the deterioration from the inside of the pipe that's coming out. That's a concern, and that feeds into the capital replacement program. So we're talking about dollars per capita. I don't have those figures in front of me, but for instance, in Peoria, we're doing about $8.5 million worth of water main replacement this year. And it would be commensurate, per capita or per infrastructure impact for this community as well. So there's pipe replacement, but then there's also treatment. So if you have a wholesale treatment change for a community, that takes some time, and it sounds wishy-washy. Hopefully you've all heard about Flint, Michigan. We have had kind of a mini Flint in Illinois in University Park, which is a south suburb of Chicago. There was kind of a quick change in treatment, and then they had a lot of corrosion control issues. Heavy metals were coming out of the pipe, and that is what the IEPA is trying to stop with any kind of knee-jerk reaction to like a treatment change. So what Pam explained was usually there's a change in source or a change in treatment study, and those generally last 12 to 18 months. And depending upon what they find, there may be subsequent requirements from the IEPA. If the waters are found, the new source water or the new treatment change is found to be somewhat corrosive to the pipe, we may have to do a pipe loop study, which is a harvest pipes from the existing system, and simulate those changes to see if there's any detrimental effects from those, like heavy metals coming out of the pipe. They can also do a shortened version, which is a coupon study, where they take segments and they run it through basically in jars. It's like a smaller study. But yeah, it can be lengthy, and you don't know the length of the time that it's going to take until you get into the process. It is based on your material inventory and your existing water quality. When I say material, your service line inventory. It's heavily based on lead and copper, and then your existing water quality and your proposed water quality. But again, it can take quite a bit of time, but at least 12 to 18 months, if not longer. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Tripp, while you're up there, and first off, I want to thank you all for the invitation to tour your treatment facility. Trustee Kazam and I went down there yesterday and spent a good 2 hours walking through the facility and seeing the treatment there. So I appreciate you opening it up to us to see what you guys do there. One of the things that I had a question, and I think this hits on that. I just want to make sure. So from my understanding, we use a free chlorine treatment here in the Heights, while maybe in Peoria you're using a mixture of two different other or some similar chemicals as well. So I was wondering, is that what we're talking about? If we put that mixture into our system, that could be potentially corrosive?
Potentially. So any type of treatment change, if it's a change in disinfectant, I think if you're going from free chlorine to, we use chloramines in Peoria. It's a chlorine-based disinfectant. It's the same end result. It disinfects water. But anytime you have any kind of change, that trips the change in treatment, change in source look from the IEPA. Some things are more drastic than others. Like you probably add a phosphate right now to your water. Those types of changes are a little quicker to be reviewed, but still reviewed nonetheless. You may be adding some other kind of, like fluoride is usually a pretty simple change. If you're changing a species of fluoride for fluoridation, that's usually a fairly easy change, but it still needs to be reviewed. And they definitely are not on the side of taking any shortcuts, and rightfully so. I mean, the public's health is at stake.
And to keep with that shortcut analogy, Kyle, I we were looking at that timeline earlier you had on your presentation. Requests for proposals, you were talking about off-ramps. How far along that timeline is the last exit?
I could bring it back up, but it would be all the way to the end. I mean, the deal's not done until there's ICC approval and the APA agreement is signed and the deal is actually closed.
Okay.
So there is potential to get off at any time throughout the process, which, excuse me, again, the buyout process itself, we're looking at 9 to 12 months. Now, as we get deeper into the process, and we become more comfortable and more confident with the certainty of actually going through, are there some things that could get started from a water quality perspective, from an engineering perspective, possibly to try and shorten that window up. But I mean, that was one of the things I talked to the team before we got in here tonight, and I want to be very clear, I want to be very honest, because I know there are some concerns with some discoloration of water. These are not quick things. And again, to Tripp's point, rightfully so. Because again, we're talking about an item that goes, that folks are ingesting. And again, we are trying to avoid a Flint or a University Park situation by having a knee-jerk reaction and changing our source water or our treatment plan. And that's where, again, though, at the same time, we would be researching these changes in source, these changes in treatment. The capital plan would begin at the same time. So main replacement, main upgrades, service line replacement, lead line replacements, all that begins right away.
And one last thing, I don't want to filibuster this, but and I can't take credit, I just want to ask Chief Reichert's question. So when we you have a contract that was signed 100 years ago with the city of Peoria. I'm sure you would never make a contract like this again. But every 5 years, Peoria gets to potentially buy back their system. If they wanted to do that, what kind of infrastructure do you have here in Illinois, the Western Division, to supply Peoria Heights?
Yeah, we're in, the timing on this, I suppose, is either good or bad, depending on how you look at it. The actual buyout vote for Peoria this time around is next Tuesday, the 24th. So this is a very real issue, to the former fire chief's credit for asking it. And they never have voted yet to buy out the system. It has never been successful. Illinois American Water is not in a position where they are looking to divest or sell the system. So you have a potential seller that is not willing, and frankly, going back to that agreement that was signed in the 1880s, it was not specific. And there are certain, and I know you're an attorney, so you probably know this better than me, but it does lack a lot of specificity because things have changed so much over the preceding 125 years or 130 years, whatever it has been. So the reality is we service many, many territories outside of Peoria. We have responsibility for areas of Washington, Glassford, Farmington, Bartonville, West Peoria, and so our water district is not a bright line around the city of Peoria. So again, should that train ever get further down the tracks, that's all going to have to be negotiated.
Thank you.
I wish I could give you a better answer. The reality is we don't know, and we plan to never find out.
Well, and just as Kathy Stevenson had mentioned, $3,500 to do her service line replacement 13 years ago. From things that I've seen now, it's upwards of like $11,000 to do a service line replacement.
We gave a presentation probably a month or 6 weeks ago to the city of Peoria. There's a lot of lead service lines in the city of Peoria. And I know you all are going through the inventory process, and that clock begins next year as far as lead service line replacements. At the time when we presented to the city of Peoria, we're estimating the lead service line replacement to be anywhere between $12,000 and $18,000. And that really, a lot of that depends on the restoration costs. If the line goes under a driveway, if it goes under a sidewalk, if it goes under somebody's front porch, we're compelled to replace all that.
But you're covering all of the lead line replacements?
Correct. That is a difference from how municipalities are approaching this process. And we have, our folks have done some research as to what grants and what federal monies may be available to municipalities. And really right now, the request far exceeds the amount of money that the Illinois EPA and the feds have to give out. And so it's more than likely that a majority of the municipalities are only going to be able to afford or have the resources to replace their side of the service line. Illinois American has made the decision that we do go all the way into the customer's home because at the end of the day, the goal is to get the lead out of the system.
I'll go next. I have a few questions. You had mentioned that the service lines were the Illinois American Water responsibility. So if we were to have a failure in a service line, would that be Illinois Water's responsibility?
Well,
or are you talking about just the lead mitigation?
Yeah, so I mean, a service line at a newer home, a service line that's not lead, a service line that isn't galvanized, that would, within the American water system, that would be treated similarly to how Peoria Heights is treating their service line replacements right now. So that said, anything from the curb stop, which is the little round circle about the size of a pop can in folks' front yard, anything from there on out to the street is company-owned or municipally owned. Anything beyond that into the customer's home would be the homeowner's responsibility, provided it's a newer material.
Right.
If it's plastic, copper, whatever, that would still be the homeowner's responsibility. Where Illinois American Water gets involved is if it is lead or if it's galvanized or some other material that falls under the current regulations for replacement.
Okay. How many brown water complaints does Illinois American Water get annually in Peoria?
So few that I'm not sure.
So I'm trying to tabulate because I see all for the state. I can definitely get that number. I can run a report. Having worked as the supervisor at one time for Peoria, I believe we averaged maybe one a week. Some of those ended up being internal plumbing. Some of them, most of the time for us, it is dead ends that we have to put on a flush. And if we get a repeat caller, we usually put them on a flush cycle to help prevent that. We kind of do an extensive, if it ends up being a repeat. I mean, sometimes we get discolored and it's their softener.
Right.
But average, we might see 1 to 2, and maybe one of those is a week, and one of those is what I would say on our side as an issue. The chloramines, we were on free. Gosh, it's probably been 12 years ago now. With the switch to free, or from free to the chloramines, has drastically decreased those discoloration calls. We were upwards of 5 to 10 a week at that time.
Okay.
I would also, I mean, in this district alone, when we take into account our folks in Bartonville, West Peoria, I mean, we're talking about 65,000 connections.
Right. Trustee Wigington had spoken to this earlier, but in the news, the city of Peoria is looking to purchase the Illinois American Water infrastructure. Hypothetically, if that were to happen, and I think it's highly unlikely, would then the village of Peoria Heights, would our infrastructure go with the Peoria deal, assuming they purchased it, hypothetically?
And again, hypothetically, I'm not trying to dodge you intentionally. We don't know. The contract is extremely vague on that, and that would all have to be worked out as the purchase agreement evolves. A process really that we would expect to take 12 to 24 months and upwards of $4 million for the city to even complete the due diligence.
Let me rephrase that. Would Illinois American Water have the infrastructure capability to provide us water absent Peoria?
Again, it would depend on what all is involved in the sale. The city within the Peoria district right now, the city is fed by 4 individual plants. We have a main water plant down by the river, and then we have 3 satellite water plants as well. One, which is basically right next door to some of your wells. So there again, and until we would get into the Peoria Heights system and take a closer look at it, I don't think, I mean, certainly no decisions have been made this early on in the process as to whether your wells or your water plant would be decommissioned. There are, in Glassford, we run a standalone water plant out there. We run standalone plants in Farmington. So it's not an uncommon setup for us to go into a municipality, go into a district, and just because of the length of time that it can take for some of these change of source water studies, and we continue to operate the system, making the necessary capital improvements and any chemical tweaks that we might need to.
Okay.
Again, really not trying to be evasive. The timing on this was maybe a bit off. I would be
every 5 years. So
right.
That train would have came
Right.
back around. Earlier in Dave Marfell's speech, he had mentioned that if we were to sell it to American Water, we'd be part of the Peoria district. Is Washington part of the Peoria district?
Yes.
Okay.
And what that means is we service this area with our folks that are based here in Peoria.
Okay.
That's what that means.
Has any municipality ever purchased back their infrastructure?
Within Western Division or with?
Anywhere in Illinois American Water, has a town ever bought back their infrastructure?
I'm not aware of that in Illinois. We did divest a few years ago of our system in New York State, and that really had to do more with some of the regulatory climate out there. The corporate made the decision that we were going to get out of the state of New York.
Probably not a bad idea, but, so assuming that the Village of Peoria Heights would have to sell the water company, and we had the change of source authorized by the EPA, how long after that would it take to resolve the brown water issues? I know the change of source is lengthy
So
process.
it needs to be studied. I'm not trying to be evasive either. I don't want to say a date and you all get stuck on that because I don't know. We need to figure out what is causing it, the discoloration, and how do we treat it? Is it a treatment issue? Is it a pipe change issue? I don't know. But if it's a treatment issue, it's not going to, I think it's going to be a little bit of both. I think what Pam said, and I agree. The treatment, it's because let's say you're 12 to 18 months-ish, then you do have to go into construction, and is it fixing your plant, or is it providing water from this, our system, existing system, or a blend of the two? Usually it'll be one or the other. It's easier to digest as far as the IEPA for review. But it's not unheard to have a blend of both systems. So there are options there. Until we get into it, I just can't tell you a date. But generally, construction projects take 12 to 18 months on like treatment plant projects. But a tie over to our existing system, we're working on one now as an emergency, and that could be converted over to a new source for the city as well. So there's some options there. But I think a change in source to us, I say us, the new us, the Peoria water might be the quickest alternative. But again, that remains to be seen in a engineering study. See what is the least costly as well.
Right. One of the top complaints I get, and I'm sure the rest of my trustees do as well, is brown water complaints. I get videos texted to me. I get emails. So I know water quality is of the utmost importance to my constituents.
Sure. Are these pervasive, or are they in pockets?
They're in pockets.
Okay.
It seems almost random. Some of my neighbors will experience brown water, but I don't get brown water. And when I talk brown water, we're talking like coffee almost colored water. And it seems completely random. And a lot of the resolutions they get from the village is just let your water run. Well, that costs money. That doesn't happen free. I know, let me take that back. I say I never get brown water. I almost never get brown water. I have a water softener, and I have what I call a hard water line, which is an outside faucet I use for my garden to avoid salting it with my water softener. If I take water out of that, I see brown water, but I never see brown water in the house. About 2 months ago, I probably filled up 5 25-gallon totes worth of brown water, and it was still going. So that is what my constituents who don't apparently have water softeners experience, and it's very frustrating. They don't want to bathe their kids in it. They don't want to cook with it. So when I'm looking at the potential sale to American Water, what I want to know is how quickly that brown water can be fixed. If you guys have 65,000 customers in this area and you get one water complaint a week, that's a vast improvement from what I get on almost a daily basis. And one of the other things I've been watching in the news is the PFAS and PFOA regulations that are coming. I know the feds are studying it. I know the Illinois EPA is studying it. I think right now they're going through an investigation for the prevalence and occurrence of PFAS. That's kind of going to be guiding the regulations that are going to be coming in the future. Is Illinois American Water already saving for that? I mean, are you guys already planning? That's going to be terribly expensive to be able to I don't think we even really have the technology yet to filter some of that PFAS. So this is going to be cutting edge stuff. It's going to be expensive.
Yeah, we are planning for it. It's very squishy now because the requirements are not fully set and the timeline is not fully set. But based upon what we're hearing from folks in government, there's going to be a 2-year timeline, and it's likely might start next year. It depends on what comes out. The limits are not even fully set, so it's kind of a moving target. We do have some hits. We had a couple of hits in Peoria, and we're planning for those. A rule of thumb, and this is kind of just very high level, but it costs about $2 million to treat 1 million gallon a day for PFAS. So you can kind of, it's scalable, a little bit. It'll be more expensive for a smaller town to take it, per gallon to treat. It'll be a little less for a larger system, but the kind of infrastructure that is included up front is about $1.5 to $2 million per 1 million gallon of per day capacity. But that doesn't include long-term operating expenses like carbon changeouts, which are different PFAS chains are treated differently. So you can use reverse osmosis or ion exchange for some, but some you have to use carbon. So granular activated carbon would be in there, and that's not one time and done. You could change that out perhaps twice a year, and that gets very costly over time. So it's kind of a moving target.
And for those listening at home in the audience, that may be a new term, PFAS, but they're also called forever chemicals. And they're in everything. They're in fish, they're in animals, they're everywhere. From what I understand, the manufacturing process for a lot of this stuff ended in the 70s, wasn't it? And this stuff just stuck around, and it's forever. That's why they call them forever chemicals.
Yeah.
And from what I read on the news, that they're in all of us already. And I think the source is the water, which is kind of freaky. So, I mean, that's a huge expense that's coming to towns to be able to filter that stuff out.
And I will do a quick comment on that. Some resource that we actually have a research department with American Water that sits in Belleville, Illinois. And we have a whole team down there dedicated to it. And the IEPA is kind of like, help you guys, help us figure out how to advise that treatment. And they're kind of leaning on us to do those type of studies. And it isn't a quick answer. And the federal EPA has their own idea of regulations. The IEPA tends to go a little lower. And the scuttle is that they may go lower on PFAS. So that's a whole nother ballgame of, okay, we're talking to treatment at this level, and now they want us to get down. We also have a lab internally that's certified for these emerging contaminants, kind of at our disposal, so we have that technology available.
Just to clarify, you said the Illinois state regulations will likely be more restrictive?
That is the rumor, yep.
I'm done, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. So I feel like everybody up here has sat through a lot of these meetings, and we've really have learned a lot about the water. I think we're talking about all this length of time and months and how long it will take, and I understand that you cannot give us a timeline. But for the people at home that don't understand or who have not been through as many of these, if we put out an RFP tomorrow and started this process, could you give an idea of about how long it would be until we would be in potentially good working order and no brown water? So like, are we looking at 2 to 5 years? Are we looking at 5 to 7 years?
The 2 to 5 would be more accurate.
Okay. Is someone from Woodard and Curran here?
Yes, Don Tall is here.
Okay, so from what I'm understanding, if we look at the capital improvement plan from Woodard and Curran, even just to be able to be at that same point, we're looking at bare minimum $4.5 million. And if I'm understanding right, we're at like six years minimum, right? So I just think that those are things that we need to keep in mind.
And did our proposal include PFAS treatment? When we did our 5 and 20 year capital plan, did that account for the new regulations that are going to be coming down? Does anyone know?
Don, can you come up to the mic, please?
Yeah, thank you. And Wayne, would you, before he gives an answer, would you set up what we've done with Woodard and Curran, how we engage them and what their task
Okay,
is?
sure. Yeah, Woodard and Kern, we engaged a couple of years ago, I think, to primarily prepare our water capital plan, knowing that these issues were up. So Woodard and Kern, I think earlier this year.
February.
Yeah, we gave a presentation to the board and the public and released that capital plan, which included, projects, individual projects, a timeline to complete those projects, included both treatment projects as well as distribution system projects, and also scenarios for different rate increases with that as well. So I would say we have not, implemented any of that to this point, with the exception of lead service line inventory and applications for lead service line replacement. So.
Yeah, actually, we just submitted an application to IEPA at the end of September for a low-interest loan, which could have grant forgiveness or loan forgiveness in it, for a manganese filtration system. And then that filtration system would also have an area where we could adapt the PFAS once it comes out. We don't know what it is. We don't know how to, plan for that. But in the building that we had proposed in our application, it would have room for PFAS filtration systems. The manganese might be causing some of the brown water. It's one of the issues. And so we put in for the application for our green sand filtration system to filter out the manganese. That timeline would probably be first quarter of next year, sorry, of when we would hear from IEPA on the approval of the loan, and then also it would have the grant or the loan forgiveness amount if they choose to do so. Peoria Heights is on their list for manganese, so we're hoping it's favorable to receive a good amount of loan forgiveness on that. And then the lead service line, we're currently doing the inventory for that. So far, the communities that we've reached out to for the actual replacement has received 100% loan forgiveness for the first year, and now IEPA has asked us to do 5 years at a time because they have enough money right now and they don't know how long it's going to last, to submit 5 years worth of cost to replace so many lines per year. And so far, that's been 100% grant forgiveness, or loan forgiveness.
Thank you.
Could you clarify how long it would be, though, for us to, like, the water treatment facility that we have in our, like, that we watched in that, how long would that take for us to build if we started tomorrow?
So as far as the manganese, which may be causing some of the brown water, if we get approval the first quarter, it's expected that next July that money would be released. That's up to them. It's a government. But once that money is released, we could do the preemptive work once approved to start that process of design. So it looks like maybe at the end of the next year we could actually go to bid and start construction if their money came available in a timely manner.
Okay, in the cost of that, am I correct that is at the $4.5 million?
For the entire filtration system, we're estimating 7.5.
7.5 million?
Yes.
Thank you.
2 to 5 years?
We could go to bid next fall, so construction, and then the time frame for that for another 6 to 12 months. So 2 years, 3 years.
American Water had estimated between 2 and 5 years they could drastically address or reduce the occurrence of brown water. Are you confident the village of Peoria Heights in that same timeline could reduce the brown water complaints?
We could reduce any brown water that's coming from manganese, and then the flushing program could take care, assist in the actual distribution system. No guarantees, because if your system is aged and there is, issues in your system, so.
One question, I'm sorry. So we were looking back to that presentation, and I appreciate the work product on that. For this to occur, 4.5 million, 7.5 million, there were going to be rate increases. There were recommended rate increases on our end to do that as well. And
Correct.
just looking at some of those recommended rate increases, 24 to 25, 10%, 25 to 26, another 10%, 26 to 27, 8%, 27 to 28, 8%, 28 to 29, 9%, 29 to 30, 9%, 30 to 31, 9%, 30 to 31 to 32, 7, 32 to 33, 7, and then 33, an additional 7. So that amounts to basically a doubling of our rate as it is now to 3033.
Over the 10 years, yeah. Okay.
Or 2033, yeah.
Yeah.
So regardless of what route we go, the future to maintain our infrastructure to ensure clean and filtered water is going to take significant rate increases, at least if we're going to maintain our system. Is that fair?
It's fair. The raise per year is going to be based on the grants and loan forgivenesses and interest and all that over that year. That could be lower, it could be. We kind of did a worst case scenario on that. We assumed 50% grant forgiveness on the lead service line because that's what they were telling us.
Discussion, yeah.
Right now it's at 100, so may have less increase, you just don't know. Time would tell on that.
Okay, thank you.
So just real quickly, so I assume that the Illinois American Water 2 to 5 years was a holistic view of the entire system, that you guys are confident that within 2 to 5 years, you could address both maybe the manganese brown water and the infrastructure brown water within 2 to 5 years. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, it depends. We have another option in that we already have an available water supply that doesn't have the manganese issue that you're talking about. So if that option went that way, it could accelerate it possibly. But again, it needs to be studied and really see what's up. But yeah, within 5 years, we could do something.
Okay. And then on the flip side, on the Village of Peoria Heights, assuming it's manganese caused, we might be able to fix it in, what you said, 4 years?
Yeah, if it's from the manganese, then yes, you could severely reduce that in 4 years, 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
One question from my tour yesterday, the carbon to capture potentially PFAS the problem is what do you do with it once you capture it? Do you store it on site? I mean, does it become low-level waste? I mean, what are you going to do with it? And if we have it, what do we do with it? It's like a hot potato.
Yeah, it would be special waste. I don't even know if it's been declared what it needs to do. None of the landfills want it either because now they have a forever chemical in their possession as far as custody goes. But yeah, it is not regenerative. You can regenerate carbon, but they will not regenerate generally PFAS tainted carbon. So yeah, that's another issue that needs to be figured out.
Anyone else? Quick question, and I know you had discussions with the trustees, so if this question's come up, forgive me, but you are expressing an interest in purchasing the assets of the water company. Does that include all of the assets or just some of them? And specifically, does it include the water towers? Does it include the wells?
Being, with Dave and I being as familiar with Peoria Heights and your proud history and, of course, your iconic water tower out here, we realize that tower is going to need to stay within Peoria Heights. So again, all these things would be negotiated during the deal. Obviously, we would expect the plant, the wells, typically you would get the towers, the distribution system itself, all of your assets in the ground, water meters in customers' homes, basically lock, stock, and barrel. We do realize that there would probably need to be some special conversations and some special consideration given to the tower itself. And we would be open to that.
The other towers as well?
The other towers, again, that just depends on, we would have to do some engineering studies and figure out what's actually needed to run the system.
So if you didn't purchase them, I get, Wayne, then those had to be dismantled, the wells had to be shut down, how does that?
Well, again, that'd be part of the negotiations, but, yeah, again, yeah, I agree. There'd have to be a study to determine if a tower is required or not. You know, we would probably want Illinois American to pay for dismantling if that was the case, but again, up to subject to negotiations in a contract.
Well, I mean, typically we would take everything. I guess I was under the impression coming in here that the village would be possibly interested in retaining ownership of your observation tower here as so it could continue to be a historic landmark. And I mean, that's something we would be amenable to that could potentially be split off from any proposed deal. And then it could stand potentially fallow at that point, and it just becomes it just becomes basically what it is, you know, a tourist attraction for folks to go up and see the leaves.
Yeah, I think it could take many forms. There could be a lease agreement or
Sure.
some other form of agreement for the observation tower.
But typically we would purchase the entire system, so that would include the Toledo Tower and the standpipe below the hill.
So you're the engineer, is water stabilizing that tower and keeping it structurally sound?
I don't believe that's the case. I think structurally it can stand alone. You know, for any water tower, though, there's maintenance issues. And that particular water tower has an elevator and some other issues for life safety. So a lot of things to consider with that particular tower, yeah. But it can stand alone. It's like any other structure of its type. It's actually probably more stable without water in it because it doesn't have those internal pressures that it does now. Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Appreciate it. Thanks, folks.
All right, we have been old business. The first is approval of ordinance 2023-1709, an ordinance amending Title IV, Chapter 1 of the Village Code of the Village of Peoria Heights for the purpose of adding a new supplemental liquor license, allowing for the packaged liquor sales for Class B license holders. Trustee DeVore.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-1709.
Second?
Second. Go ahead, Sarah, please.
Okay, so this is exactly what we had talked about at our last meeting, but there have been changes made to the ordinance. So if you look on the number of authorized licenses, you can see that it is dropped to one license available. And then under section 2, items B, C, and D are added based on the request that we made at our last meeting.
Discussion? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gatt?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert? Aye. Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Next, we would be at new business. The first is approval of Resolution 2023-15, a resolution of the Village of Peoria Heights accepting a project services agreement with Farnsworth Group for Phase 1 environmental site assessments at Poplar Park and El Fresco Park. Trustee DeVore, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2023-15.
Second.
Okay, back to you, Trustee DeVore.
So this is kind of, from what I'm understanding, an initial like site plan or I guess site assessment so that we have the opportunity to have information should any kind of development want to happen in those areas. I know that Director Aldridge has worked with this the most, so I mean, I think he'd be better to answer any questions, but this is just the beginning stage, similar to how we've done in other projects where we just need to do the assessment first prior to having any development done on those properties.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's exactly right. I wouldn't recommend we purchase or make any transactions related to properties without doing an environmental site assessment. And this is just basically a due diligence process. There's surveys, there's interviews with folks, there's other things involved with this. But really to find out, you know, historically, is there any problems with this property? And then there is a phase 2 if things are uncovered in a phase 1 to do more definite research, borings, things like that. But typically, this is just a due diligence process before we would take any further steps.
Questions?
A few questions. We wouldn't entertain any development at Popular Park, would we? I'm trying to understand the need for this, because, I mean, it's the park.
Well, maybe like if you had an observation tower for bird watching or a boardwalk or something like that. It wouldn't necessarily be development as far as like economic development is considered in that way.
I understand that. Do we have any plans?
I think we also discussed like a boat ramp or something along those lines. I think those are the only things that I've discussed.
And those are things in the comprehensive plan, but we also had Farnsworth do a rendering of what Poplar Park could look like with maybe some rough campsites, boat launch, but go ahead, Wayne, I interrupted you.
Yeah, again, I think that, those were anticipated in the comprehensive plan. There were some other preliminary plans that really showed recreational uses, maybe trails and just, a place for folks to enjoy the riverfront. Development there is difficult because most of that area is in floodplain, so that's another consideration to make. But I think that generally the past plans consider recreational uses down there.
Yeah, and I don't disagree that this would be needed if we were planning on doing something there. It seems to me that we do a lot of phase ones where we throw a lot of money at engineers, and then there's never a phase 2. And don't we have a lease with Blickenstaff over Alfresco Park? I'm sure we signed one.
No, that was voided once they did their samples, from my understanding, when that was done. That was part of the agreement, that we would move forward with that lease after the samples were done, but what they found, and I forget what they found, if it was, I know it wasn't benzene.
Benzene.
Yes, right.
No, I remember that. I didn't realize.
Yeah, that was the first part of, that's to be signed, right?
Well, to give you hopefully a level of comfort, Trustee Weisenberg, we already went through, as I said, the step with Farnsworth to do those renderings, and we can have Sarah find those and send those back out. But I think there's a higher and better use of Poplar Park than what we're using it for now. It's a beautiful park, it's a great community asset, terrific green space, but making it more accessible to the public and providing some things where it can be better used. And Trustee Kazan pointed out bird watching, fishing, whatever that may be. So I think this would be the first step in that direction.
Question on this, Wayne. So does Farnsworth on these two properties, I know they belong to the village, but I would like for them to also run a title search and make sure that they actually run it, and to just make sure that the title's clean and everything like that. Is that included here?
I'm not sure, but it should be.
Okay.
I mean, I agree with that. Certainly running a title search. Title searches shouldn't cost that much anyway.
Yeah.
We can do that for a couple $100. It's not.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert? Aye. Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisberg?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Next is approval of ordinance 2023-1710, an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of a Business Development District Number 1 redevelopment agreement by and between the Village of Peoria Heights, Illinois, and Robert Costuja, 1306, 1308, and 1308A East Cyberlane Avenue. Trustee Kazam would ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay,
go ahead.
this is a BDD request by Mr. Kasuda, who's here this evening if anyone has any questions for him. They are investing $45,000 in the exterior beautification of this property that actually houses 3 different tenants, sales tax generating tenants. I'm going to turn it over to Wayne just because we've been working on for some time and have now, this will be the first time we've actually implemented it, but we have the beautification grant and we also have the something that we're calling the life, health, safety grant. So in the beautification grant, the Casutas would be awarded just over $5,000, but the life, health, safety would be just over 10.
Yes, so typically we see the beautification grant and what's been past precedents and what's written in the application is things like painting, signs, awnings. So that's what's typically been approved before. So this request was a little bit different because it included doors and windows for these three storefronts. So kind of looked at that a little bit differently, but tried to be consistent with the beautification program as much as possible, and also looking for future projects of this type. You know, we may get into BDD projects that are a bit bigger. So I think, you know, the beautification program has worked and it's good, but wanted to expand the thought a little bit to these life safety type improvements, thermal moisture protection, which can also be determined to be a life safety improvement. So you're actually helping not just the beautification of the project, but the health of the occupants and life safety. So in this case, doors would open, that may open inward, will open outward, and probably a more modern hardware put on them, you know, for egress. So I think the village should support that. So we had some staff discuss this with Steve Klein, our TIF BDD consultant, and this was what we proposed. So again, from the beautification, kind of being consistent with that existing program, beautification was total project $6,900, and then we usually offer 75% of that cost in beautification, so that would be around $5,200. And then for the life safety code, we tried to be fiscally conservative with that and being similar to the beautification program, but offered those entire improvements were about $23,000 for all these doors and windows. Being consistent, we said, well, let's offer 50% of those costs up to the $10,000, which is the same as maximum for the beautification program. So in this case, that maximum amount was achieved at $10,000. So the total package is about $15,177. So again, it's a redevelopment agreement. We can do whatever we wish to do in a redevelopment agreement, but we try to be consistent, try to be fiscally conservative. We anticipate some of these issues will come up again, and we want to kind of be consistent as far as setting precedents on these improvements.
Thank you both for that explanation. Questions?
I think this is very generous of the property owner. Three distinct properties here, all generating tax revenue into the BDD. I know typically they could potentially be three distinct line items themselves. So why did we elect to do it this way?
They could be, but in that case, the individual businesses would be the grantee and would be responsible for the improvements. So, you know, there is some management and some other things that go along with that. So each individual business would have to apply, and they would then be the grantee rather than this approach which the property owner
And this, I have a question about this actually, Wayne. So this would not necessarily, or would it preclude the business to apply for BDD funds that would directly affect, like, for example, signage, as we've granted in the past?
In my opinion, it wouldn't preclude that. It's a different aspect of beautification, so that wouldn't be precluded. And that's more of a traditional business expense than as far as beautification.
So I think that I like this new approach that we're doing. I wish that we could have been presented this approach separately rather than we're voting all of it as a whole, because we're doing a policy change. Frankly, with this, by approving this, we're also incorporating a new policy as far as this health and safety element. And then we're setting a precedent, as you mentioned, going forward as well. So I would have preferred this to be separate rather than being all as a whole. But I don't think that it's a bad idea. I just think that, I think we could have divided it up. And I think it also gives us an opportunity to kind of do some introspection as far as, do we open it up to both a property owner and a renter to essentially get both get 10,000?
I think we already have. I mean, not necessarily on this, but we have done that.
In other areas in the Heights, yeah.
And again, I think we need to be, we have to watch our budgets and things like that. So this is something we might consider in the next budget. I know originally the facade program had a specific budget, and we wanted to stay within that. So we just want to be responsible. But I think it is a good thing, and we're heading in this direction to write a more specific policy, and I think that's a good idea. But again, we could get some bigger redevelopment agreement, some rehab project, and say we want to give more, which is entirely the board's discretion to do that.
Sure.
The other thing that's come up, just for information, some businesses, and this is a matter of policy too, frankly, but want the village to cooperate with what I would call direct business expenses, like interior furniture for a business or things like that. It's not a facade improvement, and it's really specific to a business. And in my experience, with this, it's kind of shy away from that, from public expense, because it's not something seen from the street. It's not a life safety thing that we're certainly concerned with too.
It's not an infrastructure improvement, and we
Yes.
have not, just, for the record, granted any that. We've not done that.
No, we've seen some of that come by our desk, yes.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee DeVore.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Kazam.
Aye.
Trustee Reichert.
Aye.
Trustee Wigginton.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Next is approval of an art exhibit and display agreement. Trustee Kazam, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
And a
Second.
second. Go right ahead, please.
So at the last meeting, Valerie Wolf came in front of us and explained the sculpture that will be placed, or maybe I don't think it has, it's there. Yeah, actually, on Marietta. And this is just an agreement between the village and the artist, recognizing the fact that it's on loan for 4 years, that it is actually the property of the artist, and it's there for the beautification of the community and education, art education of visitors in the community as well. So it's just kind of formal paperwork recognizing that, which we did not have at the last meeting.
Thank you. Discussion?
I have a question. So, they put this, they had a stand made for it. So when they take that down, will the stand go with it, or will it be there?
I think it's a big stone, right?
Yeah.
So that was given by the Peoria Park District. It doesn't belong to us. I don't
Okay.
know what will happen, but I think the idea is for that corner, I mean, we've identified that corner as a potential space for a trailhead someday or something like that.
Right.
And if that would happen, we could move that sculpture to another location. But no, I think that, that's the property of the Park District. So, and the idea, this is what I was going to say, is that maybe that's a revolving art
Kind of like downtown?
exhibit. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
In 4 years, another piece may go in there.
Great.
Okay, anyone else? Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Kazam.
Aye.
Trustee Reichert.
Aye.
Trustee Wigginton.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Next is approval of ordinance 2023-1711, an ordinance adding Title II, Chapter 4 of the Village Code of the Village of Peoria Heights, creating and establishing a firefighters pension fund and creating a board of trustees of the firefighters pension fund. Trustee DeVore, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-1711.
Second.
Council, you want to set this up, please?
Sure. With the prospect of hiring full-time firefighters triggers an obligation of the state statute to create both establish the pension and create a board of, a board to administer the pension. It's really administered at the state level. That board doesn't have a lot of hands-on period. I don't know how often they'll meet. But in looking toward bringing on full-time employees, this is just one of the steps. And the next ordinance is another step.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I was reading through the memo that we received regarding this from Miller, Hall, and Triggs, and it said that the firefighters' pension fund that were required by state law, said something about we're required, full-time firefighters are required to join the pension fund. We have a full-time firefighter now, and we haven't done this. So, we have a full-time firefighter now.
Well, then we're behind the
Okay.
curve on it.
Okay, right, don't we, isn't the assistant chief a full-time employee, isn't he?
Correct, and if you remember right, the initial vision of the board was the fire chief would be a full-time position, as you know, but when we hired Chief Thompson, he wasn't available full-time, so that structure changed. So I'm not sure if that changed with it, but that is the reason why the fire chief was not drawing a pension.
Yeah, I was just reading through this, and it said,
Yeah.
that we're required by law to establish this. If we have full-time paid firefighters, and we do, so I was just, we have for.
Yeah, we'll get us in compliance with the state.
Okay.
I have a question of council to Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Council, they say that, or in this memo as well, it says that the information will be required to move forward with estimates for tax levies to fund the pension fund. So is it this board that is setting, or recommending?
They make recommendations, but this board has complete authority over the tax levy.
This board?
Yes.
Our board, the one I'm sitting on here?
The village board.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, but the firefighter pension board would recommend additional levies to cover our expenses?
I believe they would, and they're more hands-on managing pension issues day in and day out, whereas this board would be responsible for the tax levy.
Now
If any, and there's no it's not mandated. The levy is permissive. We're authorized by statute
as long as it's funded?
to levy a tax, correct.
Okay.
We have to fund it one way or another. Tax levy, real estate tax levy is one source that we can choose to use for that funding.
Okay. I know that in Peoria, they had passed a separate line item previously, or fee to cover pension obligations.
Right.
Now, just coming from Illinois Municipal League, they have a downstate firefighters pension fund, which I believe all of the municipalities, with the exception of maybe 9 funds here in Illinois, are a part of.
Yes.
So the day-to-day financial management falls outside.
That's all on the state.
Okay.
And it is all consolidated, right, going to a pool.
Okay. Thank you.
And Council, if I could just finish the thought I had, because we've had a full-time firefighter, and we apparently haven't been contributing. I know there was some concern about having pension debt, and I think that's trouble a lot of towns got into. They just didn't fund the pension debt. So are we behind on funding the pension that we?
We likely are, and we're going to find out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I definitely don't want pension debt. I know that's been a conversation I've had with Trustee Kazam. If we have a full-time firefighter and we're supposed to have been contributing to a pension fund, I want to make that whole, because I don't want to be behind.
We'll make sure, yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert? Aye. Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Next is approval of ordinance 2023-1712, an ordinance amending Title II, Chapter 2 of the Village of Peoria Heights, regarding the establishment of the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners. Trustee DeVore, can I get a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-1712.
Second. All right, council, back to you again.
This is another one with bringing on employees, not the chief, that's different, that's by ordinance, but for employees in the fire department, once you start having full-time employees, you need a board. Right now, we have one for the police department. We need to add the fire department to that board. It'll be the same board, but it administers both employment decisions for the firefighters as well as police officers. So really, all we're doing is adding fire to the existing police board.
Discussion?
How are and keep in mind I'm new when I ask this question, how are they appointed? How are they decided who?
By the mayor.
Oh, like they submit something to you and interested and then, okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take recommendations. Got one this morning. Anyone else?
So the commission grows by how many?
It's 3.
3. So three law enforcement, 3.
No, I believe it's 3 total, isn't it, council? Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't change.
change. We're just expanding their authority over fire department, whereas right now it's only in police.
Yeah.
And this is just in reference to the pension?
No, this has nothing to do with the pension. This is employment decisions, ultimate. But why don't you explain how it works with the police?
Yeah, for the police
They operate exactly that same way with fire.
For the police department, it is, they're involved in the new recruit interviews and establishing a current list for hiring. That's not lateral transfer pool, it's new recruit list. They also interview when we have officers that are being promoted to sergeant, they go through the interview process as well with us, with whatever panel I put together, so.
So, just to be clear, because I don't think I'm confused, there are 3 for fire and 3 for police?
No, 3 total.
So if you've got 3 now, how does one go about?
Well,
I guess, is there a term, like, how does
yeah,
that?
there are terms.
Okay.
We currently have a vacancy.
Okay.
I know.
That's
Yes,
what I was
yes.
wondering, is like, we're doing this,
Yep.
but
Okay. I assume that the broader question was, Trustee Reichert, is how does the fire department have representation? in the
yes,
commission?
sorry, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Figure out how to word that for me, I'm still learning.
That's a good question. Anyone else?
Does
Madam
it-
Clerk?
Sorry,
Go
one
ahead.
more.
No,
And
go
does it
ahead.
have to be an employee in the commission? Or can it be
No,
just?
no, it's
Can it
just.
be like a retired firefighter?
It's a resident.
Residents.
Resident.
Or resident?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, and they serve for a term, and then they're appointed and approved by the board.
Okay. Well, they must have been on there a long while, because I.
Those
haven't-
are those 6-year terms, council? I think
I
they're-
can't remember.
I think they are.
I think they're
I don't
6-year
think it's
terms.
ever come up before, that I can remember. Appointments.
Yeah, well, since there's only 3 and they're longer terms, it's pretty infrequent when you
Right.
see that.
Okay.
Turnover.
Okay, Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert?
Aye.
Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
All right, that passes. The next 2 items, appointment of a fire chief and the approval of the fire chief employment agreement, I placed on the agenda. I've been anxiously awaiting to bring this to you. As you all know, you've met a candidate that we have. They have made me aware that since they're relocating from out of the area, they've been looking for housing in the area, and they have been unsuccessful to find housing in the area. They have yet to sign the contract, so I'm going to ask for a motion to defer this. I don't feel comfortable approving any candidate without the agreement signed in place. Council, I don't know if you have any recommendation on that.
No, I concur with that assessment.
So are you okay with deferring both of those, or do we need to do them individually? Or
I would do them individually.
Okay. The first on the appointment, I'd ask for a deferral.
I make a motion to defer the appointment.
Second?
Any discussion on that motion?
Are we moving forward with additional candidates, or are we waiting for?
Yes, because there's a sense of urgency, in my opinion, a big sense of urgency to get this filled. And I've waited longer than I typically would to try and accommodate this candidate, as you all have met. And it was unanimous that this would be a very good candidate, but I think we have to move forward, and I'm going to be looking at other options immediately.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk, on the deferral.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert?
Aye.
Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Next is the approval of a Village of Peoria Heights Fire Chief employment agreement without a candidate. I don't think we should vote on,
I move to defer.
okay.
Second.
Any discussion on the deferral? Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert? Aye. Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Next would be at miscellaneous business. Any miscellaneous?
I have a few items, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Just give me 1 second here, because I want to make sure I get this right. This is actually pretty important. But I can't remember where I saved my document. I'll just wing it. This Saturday, the 21st, the Peoria Heights Grade School PTO is hosting our annual trunk or treat from 5 to 6 p.m. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind the board and remind our viewers at home and the audience that it is, if you have children, bring them out. It's a wonderful event. I think this is my 3rd year participating in a trunk, or having a trunk, and it is an absolute blast. And I was also curious, Mayor, if we could, I know there's a name for it, but the bulletin board out front on Prospect, could we get the trunk or treat event listed on that?
Yeah.
The manual one out here that.
Yeah, the old-fashioned one?
Yeah, the old-fashioned one. There's a name for it. I forget the name for it, but there's an official name for those.
The name escapes me, but Madam Clerk, will you make a note tomorrow to get that
Yes, we will take care of it.
Yeah, perfect. And I think the village has a trunk, from what I understand.
I think so, yeah.
Right.
Both the fire department and the police department will be represented. I have gotten them about 50 pounds of candy between the two.
All right.
Ooh.
That's going to be up here then.
Yeah, I know 1 year we ran out, and then 1 year I had too much, which that was kind of bad on me afterwards, but it's a great event, so I encourage everyone to come out. The PTO does a wonderful job putting it on, and it's a great night.
Thank you. Anything else?
I have something actually that will piggyback off of what Trustee Wigginton was talking about. I have had more than, 5 to 10 different residents approach me and say that we need a message board, a larger message board or a digital message board. I know I'm kind of attached to the old-fashioned message board we have out there, but that actually lists our different events. We have so many amazing events in the Heights, and some of the people conducting the events do put up their own signage, but it's often difficult to read. So it's just an idea and something we might want to have a conversation about.
Maybe a big LED one.
I mean, I'm not sure, not LED. But I don't know, I mean, that's big, but it's not big enough to list all of our events. But not everyone has a computer or gets online, and I think it would be nice to have different events listed out there.
I agree. If you can all figure it out, bring it forward.
Okay.
Budget time. Any other miscellaneous?
That's a lot coming from a former zoning board member, hearing that, so that's good.
Any other miscellaneous?
I have a couple things, Mayor. We'd like to thank Heights Flowers for donating all the mums up and down Prospect and Tower Park. I believe they donate them every year, and obviously it helps the village look beautiful.
Thank you.
And
I did send Mr. Collier a letter of thanks, but thanks for bringing it up tonight.
Yeah,
The community should know it's very
I
generous.
would also like to recognize Tanya and Laura and Margaret, who have been taking care of the flowers pretty much every day the whole season.
And they look good from start to finish. So thank you, Chris.
Yep.
I got a compliment on the street department this last week, thanking the department for fixing the manhole cover that was uneven on the corner of Lake and Boulevard, and how life-changing it has been for the residents that live in that area, and they were very grateful, so thank you for your team for doing that.
So,
Sure.
Mr. Chandler, would you like to explain how that started? And
I would like to explain that that was Peoria Disposal, or I'm sorry, the sanitary district
GPSD.
that did that,
Oh.
that did the repairs, but I did reach out to them.
But we reached
get
out to them to ask them to repair it, and they were very prompt once we brought it to their
Absolutely.
attention. But I had some people ask me if we could, they thought it was our responsibility, and Chris pointed out that it was theirs. So thanks for bringing that up too, Sarah.
They also took care of 3 of them on Gardner Lane. I don't know if anybody's noticed. Those are fixed now too as well.
What else? I mean, that it?
That's it for me.
Okay. Any other miscellaneous?
Mayor, I think I announced this the last meeting too, but the HUD Healthy Homes Grant. We're going to put a mailing out probably within a week to all the folks in Census Tract 43, which is basically the area west of Prospect for that. So all those folks will get a mailing. We'll post our applications on our website. And we'll also have, I think we're trying to schedule a meeting first week in November at St. Thomas School Community Center to have just a presentation on the program and give the folks opportunity to ask any questions. So.
Thanks, Wayne. Would you remind everyone what that grant entails?
Yeah, the Healthy Homes Grant will be 15 homes in Peoria Heights in that specific census tract. And what it does is supports radon mitigation, lead mitigation, moisture, safety hazards, and other issues in a home. So again, it's a program that's grant supported through the Housing and Urban Development Department, and it's matched in this case by the Village of Peoria Heights for the rest of the cost. But a fairly long process as far as application being financially qualified first, and then being the house being qualified in itself for the improvements. So, but I think it should be a substantial improvements for these 15 homes.
And it will be on a first come, first served basis?
Basically, yeah. We're just going to take applications, I think, the Heights is one time and see what we get.
Okay.
But again, the process of approving an application will take some time, and METEC will actually help financially qualify these folks as well. And then the rest of the process will be inspecting the home, coming up with what needs to be done in the home, and then ultimately having a contractor do the improvements. So that's something we'll do separately from METEC is to secure a contractor. And I hope it's one contractor rather than various contractors.
One general?
Yes.
Wayne, is it fair to say that the 15 homes is just an estimate that could vary up or down based on the need of the homes that qualify?
It could be, but I mean, budgets could change, but typically we're seeing costs higher than anticipated. So it may be more likely that the numbers come down, but and again, this grant is spread throughout all the various zip codes in Peoria. So with those homes being managed by METEC, so we'll see. There is some variability with the permission of HUD.
Okay, thank you. Any other miscellaneous? We would be at payment of the bills. I'd ask for a motion to pay the bills.
I make a motion to pay the bills.
Second? All right. Any discussion on the motion or question on any of the bills? Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert?
Aye.
Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
All right, that passes. The bills are paid. Madam Clerk, the treasurer's report.
As of the end of September, there was $8,059,946.42 in the village-controlled accounts. In the water-controlled accounts, there was $2,146,338.46.
You have heard the treasurer's report. I would ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
In a second, please.
Second.
Discussion on the motion or questions on the report?
I got a question, Ms. Turner. Financially, how's the village doing? Are we running a surplus? Are we?
For this fiscal year?
I know I'm putting you on, yeah, this fiscal year.
I would let the administrator.
And we're doing well. We are running a surplus. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. As you see the treasurer's report.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we just passed 8 million, and I think the last report we were under 8, so. Yeah, thanks for bringing that
It
up.
doesn't mean you can go out and spend.
You know. Al Frisco Park.
I think that could be done for a lot less, so I hope.
Yeah.
But I do want that kept on the radar.
Definitely.
Any other discussion on the report? Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert?
Aye.
Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Just before we adjourn, you heard information tonight from Illinois American Water. I'm going to leave it lie unless there's some of you that want to move it forward. If you want to move it forward, please give the administrator and myself some direction. If that's the case, then I think we should start preparing for a lot more, no pun intended, a deeper dive as far as due diligence and next steps.
Could I?
Mayor, I know when we had originally procured, in fact, when we talked to the predecessor here of the Western Division before, I think it was it Larson? Eric Larson. He had recommended that we get an assessment of the value of our system to determine what a fair price would be. And it sounds like it is kind of built in based on the presentation tonight that there would be 3 evaluations of the system regardless if we pay for it or not. But I remember Woodard and Curran being able to do an assessment like that if necessary. Is that
one of the things they specialize in? Can you answer that, please?
It's a report for Peoria.
Oh, you did? Okay. Okay. So you're more than capable of Peoria Heights doing that as well. What's the turnaround time on that?
I don't know.
I mean, you already have a.
That was just giving them the next steps, and that was like a 2-month turnaround.
Okay.
That wasn't like getting into the negotiations and all that, but.
You know our system.
Right. Your system is much smaller than theirs. Yeah, I would say 2 to 3 months rather than.
Anyone else?
Just a parting comment, Mayor, is that I was a little concerned that we didn't get a definite number from Woodard and Curran on how long it would take to resolve our water quality issues, assuming it's the manganese. I think it was 4 to 5, 3 to 5. If it's other things, it could be 5 to 10. Where American Water seemed to have much more confidence in their ability to turn the water quality around. At least that's what I got from it. And I know like I said before, I get a lot of complaints about the water quality. One of the things I worry about is making those investments, raising those rates, and then still being plagued with brown water for what maybe could be a generation, 20 years, 10 years, who knows. So I think if we raise the rates, we've got to improve the quality while we raise those rates. If we raise those rates and we're telling people, oh, just keep it on for 30 minutes, now they're paying more to flush the brown water out of their system or out of the streets or wherever it comes from. So that's one of my concerns. That's going to be a hard sell for me to tell people to pay more for water just to flush the brown water down the drain. So I was hoping to have a little bit more concrete numbers on our plan. I would love to have Woodard and Curran to say 2 to 5. In all matters, not just manganese, which obviously is a concern. But I know there's a lot of people concerned about the brown water. Some people get it more than others. But I know it is a constant frustration of constituents regarding the water quality.
Those are good points, sir. I know it's difficult to answer a question very quickly, but if we asked Woodard and Curran within a quick amount of time to get more specific on some of these turnarounds, is that possible?
Yeah.
And if you don't mind using the microphone, please, so everybody at home can hear you.
You know, kind of like Illinois American was saying, you don't know the source until you investigate. So without the water samples and investigating throughout your system, not just at your plant, it's hard to tell what that source is. We do know that manganese is an issue here, not only as a contaminant, but also probably a source of some of your brown water or maybe all of your brown water. We don't know. So I wish I could give you like a drop dead thing, but without the investigation of what is causing the source, it's hard to say. On timeline, we could do some more sampling. We could do an in-depth analysis and try to, narrow that down of what's actually causing it.
Do we take water samples when we get brown water complaints every time?
No, No, we don't take samples from individual houses. We only take samples from our part of the system.
Right.
Right, and that's why you have the unknown, because you don't know what's happening in your system. So being able to take samples at an individual house or a different location throughout your system, it may really narrow that down to see if there's manganese there, then maybe that's the cause, more of a,
You said that's our unknown,
what's that?
not taking the water samples in the house. You said that's our unknown.
Well, there's no way to go farther of knowing what is causing it without further investigation.
Should we be taking samples when we get brown water complaints?
Sure. I mean, it's nothing but good. Nothing bad's going to come of it. Any information you can get's good information.
So and obviously these happen randomly, so it's not something we know my house is going to get brown water tomorrow. So if a resident was to keep a glass of it, say for 24 hours or over the weekend, would that sample still be valid to be able to turn into the village?
I would have to ask one of our technicians on that. But if there's manganese in it, that's not going to just go away.
Okay.
So that would be able to tell. And there's a turbidity issue. That's the brown is, if there's something in your system, it's probably just stuff floating in your system, that you normally would flush out. So that would be able to be determined also.
Mayor, that would be really helpful information to have.
I agree.
To know, especially when we get, if we get a repeat customer, or a repeat, I don't want to say offender, but a repeat address that constantly gets brown water, we can say we've tested it, this is the cause. It might relieve some of their concerns regarding the cause of it or what it actually is.
I think all information is good. Sir, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
When you say you take the samples, Superintendent Chandler, where do you, when you guys flush the hydrants, or is it someplace else?
Oh, no, I was referring to him like if somebody calls and says,
Oh.
can you sample my water? We don't do that because it is not in our system at that point. It is in, it's in an
the house
individual
system, but
house.
outside of the house.
But every month we take samples from various spots and turn
Okay.
those into the EPA.
Okay.
Every month.
Just different places.
Different spots
Okay.
every month. And then we sample our water daily and check it from a certain spot. Yeah.
Do you do that in?
Miscellaneous information, but you can actually bring that up online and look all the way back to, I think, 97 of all the water tests they take. And it's actually pretty interesting. But, getting back to the original question, Mayor, if we could take samples on those complaints, I would love to see that data to see what's actually causing the brown water. Because if it is the manganese, then our 2 to 5 or 2 to 4 year treatment plant is a viable solution.
Is it just one test, though, that you would perform, or are there multiple different tests? Like you test specifically for manganese, or you test for chlorine? or you
Right,
test
yeah.
for-
I would test for whatever you can test for, just to make sure there's not something else in there that we need to be concerned with. Do you test in-house or do you send it off to a lab?
We send it to Pace Labs.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
take them out there individually.
we can talk with our water quality engineers to see what the tests are that you should be doing and make a recommendation on that also.
And then you were saying you could do a more in-depth testing too and tell us if you think it's the manganese?
Right, well, we could take the samples that you guys send off, take those results, and we could use the results to help make that determination.
Okay. Sorry.
So manganese itself, from what I understand, we heard a little bit touched on by the Illinois American Water representatives today. They said they have a source that's pretty much free of manganese. I think I know what that source is, but so well water is going to produce potentially manganese, and surface water is likely not going to produce it as much. Is that fair to say?
I'm not sure I could answer that correctly.
I think that's
but different sources have different contaminants.
Yeah, I think that's what they were getting at.
Yeah.
They've got four stations. They said one doesn't, the rest of the 3 are wells.
Well, you guys have 5 wells, I believe, and some of them produce higher.
Sure.
And they're not that far apart, so.
I think what he was referring to is they remove the manganese altogether.
They filter it all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, just going through their system, they have, gravity that filters it, then they send it through, various, carbon filters, and they have a UV filter and, add chlorine and ammonia and whatever to do it. We don't do that.
We do not filter our water.
At all.
Okay.
Right on where piers can be.
Just a quick point. Now, we did vote to spend some money on ice pigging. So Wayne or Chris, when is that?
That's still tentatively the end of November.
And what was the cost of that?
I'm sorry?
Do we remember, what was the cost of that?
I believe it was around $180,000, and that's going to take care of this, this neighborhood and the Toledo neighborhood. Well, no, go ahead.
I thought it was supposed to be September.
Yeah, it was. It did get pushed back. I don't believe you were here maybe at that, when I announced that.
So Superintendent Chandler, that's, from what I understand, that was a third of our system?
Yeah, that's maybe not quite a third. We'll see.
Have you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that, like I said, that takes care of this neighborhood and the Toledo neighborhood. Then we would still have down by the school, we would still have south of Lake, all of that, and then below the hill. And it's probably maybe a quarter of the system would be more.
Did we target those areas due to data we got regarding complaints? Is that how that happened?
Yeah, those would be they have the highest rate of complaints, yes.
All right, well, a lot to think about, so I'd ask you all to go home and sleep on this. And without any other business to come before the board, Trustee Gett?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
So moved.
All those in favor of the motion to adjourn signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it.